Okay, welcome everybody to our September program. Everybody got their phones on mute. I just put mine on, I forgot. So, anyway, we're going to be on Zoom again tonight, and hopefully every meeting. We got new projectors and new computers and cameras, and so we're up and running. And and everything's going to be uploaded to the Squirrel Hill Historical website. So if you missed something, you can go back and look. There's about 200 on there now. So you can have a good time going down a rabbit hole watching all kinds of programs. Okay, real quick, I'm Jim Hammond, president of our society. Helen Wilson here is our VP, newsletter editor, researcher, among other things. Anything you ask her to do, she does it. Tony here, Navina, he's our email coordinator, and actually he's working on the computers. And also he's the president of the Neal Log House Association there. Todd Miller, back here, he's our program coordinator, and Toby is, I don't see him, he's not here, he's the other, Toby Chapman, he's our other program coordinator. Stanley Klein in the back is our membership coordinator. Evelyn Young's not here. She's our treasurer. Audrey, back here on the media specialist. She records all the programs and gets them uploaded. And we have, who we miss here? Wayne Bossier is not here tonight. He's a researcher. Charles Sukop, he's a researcher and working on Instagram also. Programming, he's not here. Todd Wilson is our researcher and also another Instagram coordinator. These are going to be our experts, these last two on the Instagram. Is that right, Todd? Yes. And Jean Binstock, she works the information table. She's not here tonight also. And I think that's everybody. Okay, I found out we have a new pest in Squirrel Hill, and they call them lantern flies. Them dumb things. I tell you what, I must have killed 1,000 of them. So I don't know what everybody else is doing with them, but birds don't eat them. I don't know. Someone's got to come up with some kind of an animal that'll eat these things.
Praying mantises eat them.
Praying mantises. No, we got to bring a whole bunch of them in then. Mm-hmm. But I got one tree that must have, I mean, I change those sticky tapes every day. So, I mean, how many thousands of little dudes that I've killed and swatted. Anyway, that's my own little problem with bugs. Okay, our the last Squirrel Hill Market's coming up on October 7th, 6 to 10. We have like 100 artists and booths, make it booths and all that down there, and food trucks. It's kind of fun. So that you got one more chance if you haven't seen it. And Todd Miller tonight is going to introduce our program speakers, which is going to be Helen here and Todd Wilson. So.
Well, thank you, Jim, and good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to present Helen Wilson. We don't need to introduce her since we know her so well. She's one of the most active members of our group, and as vice president, she's also the newsletter editor, and does a tremendous amount of research on the history of our wonderful neighborhood. And tonight she's going to talk about Historic Pittsburgh, which is a website. Roz, do you have a question?
Well, before we get into the program, I just am wondering if anybody has information. I was thrilled to see the article in the paper that Phipps Conservatory was interested in buying the Irish Center.
Yes, I did see that. I think we can discuss that at a later time, though.
Okay.
Again, Helen, she, in addition to serving the Squirrel Hill Historical Society, also teaches courses on the history of Squirrel Hill at the Osher Lifelong Learning Program at Carnegie Mellon University, and was recently named a Squirrel Hill treasure by the Squirrel Hill Urban Coalition, will be honored along with other neighborhood treasures at a dinner in November, so I'm sure there'll be information about that we'll be sending you. But as far as tonight's program goes, Helen has graciously pinch hit for our original speaker, Julia Laza Petrucci, who will speak to us at a later time, but she came down with COVID, and so we needed to move Helen up by about 6 months. So she'll be talking about Historic Pittsburgh, which is a website to which she's uploaded numerous photos related to Squirrel Hill's history. And Historic Pittsburgh is a website that the University of Pittsburgh Library System created for as a repository of photos, maps, and other historic documentation for Western Pennsylvania communities. So Helen will speak about Historic Pittsburgh, and then Todd Wilson, a board member of our group and an award-winning civil engineer and bridge expert, will talk about the creation of our Instagram page. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to present Helen Wilson and give her the floor. Helen, thank you.
Good evening, everyone.
Good
Before I
evening.
begin, I just wanted to say that along with the night market on October 7th, you might know that I researched Turner Cemetery, which is at 3424 Beechwood Boulevard, second oldest cemetery in Pittsburgh, and has the remains of very early settlers of Squirrel Hill, all the way up to the Civil War and beyond. So it's October 7th from 12 to 3. And I just found out yesterday that, yes, we will have a restroom because the woman I'm working with is bringing in a porta-john. So we have on our ad, no restroom, but yes, there is one. So anyway, so I hope to see you there. We have placards set up. It's self-guided. It's a half-acre cemetery, and it's got just a wealth of historical information in it. Okay, so you've been looking at this picture while the introductions were being made. Squirrel Hill Fair, October 1973. Does anybody here remember that? Well, I don't either. I was living outside of Squirrel Hill across the Fern Hollow Bridge in 73, and I don't remember this. So that shows the importance of pictures. Without this picture, we would have we would just have no idea of that mass of people on Forbes. And there's another reason this photograph is really important to researchers is it gives us a snapshot of the buildings that were there at the time. And in Squirrel Hill, buildings are rarely torn down. They're just repurposed over and over. So you see PNB, Pittsburgh National Bank. Next to it is Franklin Federal, I think. We know the stores from other photographs. Stanley just told me today that your store is up there, and it was
10 continents.
10 continents, right in the middle. And then if you look back, you'll see Little's. And up there on the side of the building is Bartlett's Furs. Now, there is a movement it's been going on for a while, to repaint these signs, these advertisements that were on old buildings. If you go through Braddock, you'll see whiskey ads that cover the whole side of a building. And of course, there's mail pouch ads on barns. So this picture has a wealth of information. And I did also want to add that 1972 was the year that the Squirrel Hill Urban Coalition was formed. And they were very interested in stopping what they were seeing and calling blight in the neighborhood. They thought the neighborhood was going down. So this fair was a way to just start people thinking about the neighborhood and thinking about what they could do to improve it. So what is historic Pittsburgh? It's the University of Pittsburgh's website, which is historicpittsburgh.org. It has thousands of photographs of Pittsburgh, along with many other kinds of historical resources: books, maps, audio recordings, newspapers, directories, and a variety of other documents. You can search for a particular topic by typing keynotes into that gray search area. And here's a tip. Don't type something like Squirrel Hill in, because you will get a lot of hits, plus you'll get Heron Hill, Spring Hill, Hill District. So be as specific as possible, and if you have more than one word, you can enclose it in quotation marks so that the search engine knows that it's the one phrase that it's going to search for. And I just wanted to say something about, I have audio recordings up there. Somebody told me that there had been a riding stable in Frick Park. Now I knew there was one in Shenley, but Frick, so I looked it up, and turns out that Milt Selznick, relative of David of Hollywood fame, did have a riding stable on English Lane, which is beside the Blue Slide Park, and the horses were ridden in the park. But I also found that he had made a series of recordings, audio recordings, of his time in Squirrel Hill when he was a child, growing up on Northumberland when it was sort of farmland, and he had a pony. But there's a whole lot of other details in his recordings that are just fascinating about a Squirrel Hill that's disappeared, that we don't know about anymore. To access the Squirrel Hill Historical Society photo collection, what you do is, here it says Squirrel Hill Historical Society under recently added materials. So that's going to be there until it gets displaced by even more recent material. So that's one place to access. And I'll talk about another place a little bit later. To digress, a word about photography. The first real photographs were invented around 1820. But the earliest photos that we have found that deal with Squirrel Hill are dated 1893. They show the first trolley route to Squirrel Hill, which went through what's now Carnegie Mellon University in Shenley Park. Didn't go on Forbes Avenue because the first Forbes Avenue bridge couldn't bear the weight of the trolley engines. So what you see in the picture on the left, and that's a Pittsburgh History and Landmarks photo, and I don't think that's on Historic Pittsburgh, but that's Junction Hollow. That's the first Shenley Bridge. It's trestled, the high bridge in the back. And then if you look below that bridge, you'll see a trestle that's farther down in the valley with a little tiny trolley car on it. The trolleys had to come down John Kerr Street in Oakland, cross that trestle, and then go up through what's there is woods, but that turned into Carnegie Mellon later on. Railroads did not permit trolleys to cross their tracks. So that's the reason for the trestle. Oakland's on the left and Squirrel Hill's on the right. That's the border of Squirrel Hill. And this other picture, Squirrel Hill in 1893, that's this little tiny photo from Stefan Laurent's book, Pittsburgh, The Story of an American City, that probably a lot of you have gathering dust in one of your bookcases. But anyway, it's about an inch by inch. But it shows the trolley not going up Forbes, because at the time the trolley went about where Shenley Drive is now, and then it went up Northumberland and down Murray. Didn't go on Forbes at the time. To collect photos of Squirrel Hill. We've been collecting photos ever since we've established our society. The photos are time capsules, and I thank Tony for that phrase, the time capsules, to illustrate how the neighborhood changed and developed. The photos were found in a variety of sources, and many of them are on Historic Pittsburgh, but not all of them. But since they've already been published, we don't own them, so we can't put them on in our own collection on Historic Pittsburgh. We can collect them, we can use them as archival material, but we don't own them, we can't put them on as our collection. So here's the difference though. Most of the photos that we've found that deal with Squirrel Hill on Historic Pittsburgh date to before 1970. Most of our collection begins around 1970. So we sort of take up where those photos leave off. Oh, I'm sorry. The photo on the left, that's an old photo of the Neil Log House, and I don't think we ever found a source for that. Tony, do you remember? I don't think so. It was in books, but it's never been cited.
It's in Charles M. Stotts' architectural work.
But without a citation.
Without a citation. We believe that was perhaps one of the last tenant families.
Right, and probably dating to the early 1900s based on what they're wearing. And that's the snow picture Tony took just before the reconstruction started. So we have a picture that is on Historic Pittsburgh because we own it. So it is a photograph of ours. I'm going to just take you on a little trip through Squirrel Hill history. And again, it was interesting when I was picking these out because I could have picked any one of a lot of pictures. And these show things that I think are of interest to you, hopefully, but by no means all of the things that I could have showed you. Forbes and Murray in 1926. There's the buildings. They're just about the same as the ones that I showed you from 1973. Do you see the picture on the building on the right with the curved top? That's still there. It's now Uncle Sam's Subs. In 1926, it was the Orpheum Theater was in there. It had just closed around 1926. First theater in Squirrel Hill. Let's see. The next picture to the right is Taylor Alderdice, which opened in 1927. And I remember that beautiful sweeping front lawn. And I'm sure some of you do. Yeah. It really added elegance to what is this beautiful, stately, classic building. Bottom left, that picture, I don't think that's on Historic Pittsburgh. That's one of Thomas Watkins' collection. It was given to the Heinz History Center, but I don't think they have them online. I'm not quite sure. But anyway, you can see the Moorfield Hotel just being built. And one thing that I find interesting about this picture is if you look under Murray Avenue on the bottom right corner, what's there now has to be a whole lot of fill because that looks like a pretty sheer cliff. So, this just gives snapshots of what was there and what happened. We know what happened afterwards just by comparing this with other pictures. And on the the right bottom is the Gazette-Times, one of Pittsburgh's old newspapers. There's the Moorfield in 1924. Historic Pittsburgh does not have newspapers, so if you want to look up newspaper articles and things like that, you have to go to either the free Google News Archives, that's free, or Pittsburgh Post-Gazette Archives and newspapers.com, which are by subscription. The exception is the Squirrel Hill News newspapers, and I'm going to talk about them a little later. 1930s, there is the Manor Theater with its Tudor look, and the magazine article that accompanied some photos of the theater said it was Tudor because the owners wanted it to fit in with all the beautiful Tudor buildings in the neighborhood. But look across the street. Do you see the front porch? That building, that house is still there. That's Key Bank. They just took the front porch off and added the addition But if you look up, you can see that the house that that porch belongs to is still there. To the left, no, to the right, I'm sorry, is Squirrel Hill News. That's the newspaper that I will talk about a little bit later. World's first express stop station is opened by Gulf. That's on the corner of Forbes and Murray. It's express stop because not only could you get gas, but you could get your car serviced. You could buy a car there. That was a dealership as well. Forbes and Shady down below. That's before Rosendrug. But across the street, there were 2 gas stations. Squirrel Hill had a lot of cars, and you didn't pump your own gas back then. Beth Shalom opened in 1917, and I mentioned, and that didn't open, I'm sorry, it was established in 1917, and I showed you the Orpheum Theater. That's where it started, in an upper room. That's where the congregation started to meet. They very soon afterwards bought the land up on Beacon and built the small synagogue that you see on the left of the picture. And by 1931, they had expanded to this. 1940s, there's Marion Forward, and if you look closely on the left, you can see a trolley coming down the hill. Then Forbes and Shady, 1941 on the right. And I have blown this picture up as big as I could, and I still can't find out what that guy's looking at. I think it's probably a newspaper, just a discarded newspaper. But if you see Adele's about in the middle, upper middle of the picture, and if you notice the stepped side of that building where it goes up, and then look at the post office mural, you can see Adele's, you can see that stepped side of the building, and that's now Aladdin's. It's still there. So the person who painted the post office mural, Alan Thompson, in 1942, he was, this is a really, really important artwork of Squirrel Hill, maybe one of its finest, because it's a New Deal mural. Pittsburgh only has 3, and Squirrel Hill has one of them. It's called The History of Squirrel Hill. This is only the left half. But Alan Thompson was also an illustrator as well as a muralist, and he has he puts humor and narratives in here. You can see the baby, that little baby girl is mad. She is being ignored. And then you have in the back the gentleman waving his fist at the trolley that's bearing down on him. So there's little stories going on in this mural. Murray and Beacon. So those guys, they're just not loitering there. There was a gambling joint across the street about where the Guild Theater upstairs. So that's all I'm going to say about that. So, another Squirrel Hill News front page. In the Cold War, the United States was worried about Russian aircraft attacking the mills at Homestead. So they had a Nike missile site on near behind the Blue Slide Park, and here's an article about that. It eventually, well, within a few years, it moved to Forest Hills so that it could guard Westinghouse as well. The upper picture of the trolley, if anybody knows who gave us that, I would be really interested because I don't know enough about it to know if I should put it on Historic Pittsburgh. It could be a copy of a picture that's already been published, or it could be an original picture taken by one of the people that the person who gave it to me had access to. And it's undated, but we date it to before the 1960s because that trolley is turning down Murray Avenue. And by the 60s, it didn't go down Murray Avenue anymore. And the imposing building in the back is Asbury Methodist Church, which was replaced by Carnegie Library in the 60s. Minnedaea School opened in 1957. This is a postcard that I did put on Historic Pittsburgh because that girl in the red dress, she gave me the postcard. So that was a real find. And oh, we give the pictures back. Yes?
So that picture says Forbes and Shady, but if it's turning down Murray, that's not Forbes
You
and
know what,
Shady.
thank you, you caught a typo.
Uh,
Good, thank you,
Okay.
thank you. You know, I try to catch them all and I just don't do it, but I appreciate that because that'll make it correct.
I was confused.
Thank you, no, thank you, I really appreciate that. Forbes and Murray, it's turning down Murray, yes. And you can see the Gulf Station sign and the Sun Drug. Those were on Murray and Forbes, yes. Oh, what did I do? Let's see. I think I pressed the wrong button, sorry. Okay, 1960s. There's the Guild Theater now. It had been the Beacon. Before that, it was the Princess. And here it is now, the Guild. And next to it, in the West Building, which is the bigger building, there is Funland. Anybody remember Funland? I don't either. But apparently there were ads about how people would have bowling parties there because it was bowling alleys. It had been the Beacon bowling alleys, and it changed to Funland. And I don't know anything about it, don't have any pictures of it, so if anybody knows anybody who might have a picture, we would really like to have them. The American Legion Post. Does anybody remember that? No, okay. That was given to me by the head of the American Legion. It's a newspaper picture, so I can't put it on historic Pittsburgh. That's where Orr's Jeweler is today, right in the middle of Forbes. And when you go between buildings on the side of Orr's, that little walkway up to the parking lot, if you look at the brickwork, it looks as old as any other building along along Forbes. So I think that Orr's put a facade on old buildings. I don't remember, I don't have pictures of that. But when the American Legion building, oh, and by the way, the American Legion still meets in the rear. There's a door as you go in that passageway between the buildings, you can still see the entrance to the American Legion. So, but when this building wasn't the American Legion anymore and was changed into Orr's, what they did with, if you see the steps, and right on top of the steps, there is a monument. It's a stone monument with bronze plaques. They moved that down to the Forbes-Dallas-Beechwood intersection in that little parklet, the Veterans Memorial Parklet, and you can still go and walk around it, and it's there. It's still there. So it didn't disappear, in other words. There's Forbes and Murray in 1967, Sun Drugs, there's an Isley's, there's still Pittsburgh National Bank, and some things never changed, the Squirrel Hill newsstand and the Squirrel Hill Cafe. So here's the transition. I had said this before, that the photos of Squirrel Hill on historic Pittsburgh are and around the 1960s. But that's the beginning of the time that a lot of people that I talk to start to remember. When the Squirrel Hill Historical Society was established in 2000, we had people coming who could remember the 40s, the 50s, maybe even the 30s, but one by one, they're just not here anymore. So when I talk to people now, they remember the 60s and the 70s and beyond. So that's where our own photos begin. We have several sources for those photos. One is that Squirrel Hill Historical Society member Patricia Hughes, who was one of our founding members, walked around Squirrel Hill in 1990 and took a lot of pictures of the business district. Again, snapshots. Not any other year, but it was 1990. And then we have the Squirrel Hill Urban Coalition's photos, and they're mostly from the 1970s. This is the next year's Squirrel Hill Fair in 1974. Then we have some more recent photos by me and my son Todd and Tony, and some people who just walk up to me and hand me photos. We got some great pictures of the slag dumps before Somerset, just because somebody handed them to me. So There's one big exception, which is the photographs, the photo collection of Mary S. Brown Memorial Ames United Methodist Church, which has changed its name to Mary S. Brown Memorial Church, which was what it was originally, because it has disaffiliated with the Methodist Church. And these photos date to the first quarter of the 1900s. Children's Day, they collected all their children into the shape of a cross. The picture is also important because you can see the houses in the back that were there. You can see Turner Cemetery, and you can see where the tombstones were then, because to make a picture like this, sometimes they would pick up the tombstones and put them somewhere and then bring them back, and who knows if they put them. They're not where they had. In fact, they're still being moved around. So we did a magnetometer scan and determined nobody was buried under the actual tombstones, but it doesn't matter, the tombstones are there. So, but the other important thing in this collection is there's 24 pictures of Sunday school groups from 1923. And somebody painstakingly labeled all the names, which is going to be an amazing thing for genealogists if you want to find what your ancestor looked like. So those will be on in my next batch of pictures. So here's the 1970s. There's a picture from Forbes and Shady Avenue, and this time I got it right, thank you. But that white building is one of the gas stations. And Beth Shalom towers over on the highest point in Squirrel Hill in the background. We have 0 pictures of heads together. So if any of you have any pictures at all of heads together, please just let us scan them. We'll give them back to you. That's the only thing I could find. There's another picture of the Squirrel Hill Fair, the street fair in 1973, and you can see there were floats. And this was going down as far as, that's Rosenblum's Bakery. So this was a really big deal. 1980s, there's the Jewish Community Center, which started to open in 1988 in stages. Forbes Avenue in the 1980s, and Galiftes, that's in 1982. Another incarnation of the Guild Theater. I think that building has changed more than any other building in Squirrel Hill. But one thing about the Jewish Community Center photo, if you're looking at that and thinking, that's what it looks like today. So I asked the people I work with at Historic Pittsburgh, how recent can these pictures be? And she said, as recent as you want them to be, because they're going to be history in the future. So there it is. 1990s, there's still Pittsburgh National Bank. Manor Theater is now 2 screens. I think today it's 4. There's Black's Gulf Station has replaced that express stop, and Poli. 2000s, Forbes near Shady. There's Forward and Murray. There's Forbes and Murray with the Rite Aid building in 2005. And Carnegie Library was reconstructed in 2004. And there's the picture of when the reconstruction was going on. 2010s, another incarnation of the Guild Theater. It's now Friendship Circle, and that's what it is today. Forward and Murray, the fire. That is a screen capture from a newspaper. I have no pictures of that fire, so if any of you heard the fire engines and ran down and took pictures, I surely could use even just one. So if you have it, I can't use that one, and I would love to have that on Historic Pittsburgh. Somerset, that's a picture from 2018. The construction began in 2001, and this is when the houses were filling up the whole area of the slag dump. Krause Commons, Forward and Murray opened in 2018. 2020s, there is the demolition of Mary S. Brown Church. It was a beautiful church. The Neil Log House restoration, and it's really moving along. The chinking has all been taken out, and the building is standing, but it's supported on with buttressing right now.
New
So-
logs.
New logs, the new logs have been put in. This was a picture from the log hewing event if any of you went. There's a Fern Hollow Bridge collapse, and this picture was taken by Todd. And then the flats on forward is just being built right as we speak. So which of those photos brought back memories to you? Photos do hold memories. But those memories are dependent on the fact that they exist. What if there were no photographs? How many words would it take to describe this beautiful concrete arch Art Deco bridge, one of the last concrete arch bridges in Pittsburgh? Actually a double bridge, right? So another thing in this picture that is really hard to see, it's right up in the right curve, is the Irish Center, which for whatever happens to it, it's not going to be the Irish Center anymore. I have no pictures of the Irish Center. So if any of you, I've asked my cousins who were lifeguards there, another cousin was married there, no pictures. So if you have some, and I can disguise people with Photoshop if you don't want a person identified, but then sometimes people might like to be on Historic Pittsburgh. So anyway, if you have photographs with people, I will ask you if you want them to be able to be identified. So to access the photo collection on Historic Pittsburgh, I said that if you go to Historic Pittsburgh, the recently added materials is going to disappear eventually. But if you go to our website and click on SHHS Photo Archives, you'll always be able to access it there. If you click on that, this is the screen that opens up, and there's the link to the whole Historic Pittsburgh website, but then in the center you'll see if you just wanted to access our photo collection, and right now I have 60 photos on it, and I plan to put at least 60 more, if not more, on it in the next few months. But if you click there, that'll take you right to the site. I do want to mention what's at the bottom. The late Betty Connolly, who was our vice president, she was doing short slideshows of different parts of Squirrel Hill history. So you can click on her stories to see them. They're not on they're nowhere except on our website. So check them out. Meanwhile, if you want to go to our photo collection, click on that link, and that takes you to this box, which tells you we selected what photo would be the most representative of Squirrel Hill and settled on a happening. I think that's from 1990. And the little blurb there talks about who contributed to the photographic collection, some descriptions. And then if you scroll down, you come to small pictures that have some descriptions. If you click on the top picture, you get a fuller description, ownership, copyright, the keywords. To put these pictures on Historic Pittsburgh took a lot of work because the pictures had to be formatted to their exacting specifications, 600 TIFFs, and shaped to fit into their format, and then description had to be written, and then you had to pick keywords that corresponded to the Library of Congress keywords, and if you even didn't capitalize something, it was like, oh, anyway, it took a lot of time. So it takes time to get these photographs online. And if you click on View this item, you get a picture that you can manipulate by zooming in to see details or zooming out to see the whole picture. So, and you can move it around, you can play with it. So that's how you would access the photographs on Historic Pittsburgh. I wanted to show you just a few pictures that are either on or going to be on. Here's Killing Moon Tavern, around 1900. This photo is ours. It was given to us by the owner of Beechwood Gardens Apartments, which is 3245 Beechwood. He gave me two pictures of what was there before this, which was this famous old tavern that dated to 1819. So I don't know if the picture, I don't know if this picture was that exact building. Maybe, maybe not, but this was one of the houses that stood on those grounds before that was built. And this picture, this is the power plant under Mayburn Road that heated all of the Moorfield Hotel, all of the apartment buildings behind it, and the storefronts along forward on both sides. Major power plant. But this was state-of-the-art. It also had something else. It had refrigeration. It had a brine apparatus that sent cooled brine to every one of those houses, apartments, and the apartment house and all the apartments behind, to act as refrigerators, all tied to the same system. And this was at a time where a lot of people still had ice boxes. This is now encased behind concrete, behind flats of forward. Tony and I, I'll blame you. Okay, we went and took pictures of it before they encased it with concrete. Never to be seen again. But this is the furnaces and maybe the cooling, the brine machinery. Greengrocer is on Historic Pittsburgh. This is one of Patty Hughes' pictures. So, okay, I do want to, that was all about Historic Pittsburgh, except I do want to say a word about the Squirrel Hill News newspapers. So our previous president, Michael Ehrman, called me to his house once, and he showed me a stack of bound volumes of Squirrel Hill News this high. All of them from 1935 to 1970. And they extended beyond that, but those are the ones we have. Well, they weren't doing anybody any good down in his basement. So Michael and Ralph Lund worked with Carnegie Library to digitize them, and then worked with Historic Pittsburgh to put them on Historic Pittsburgh. And to my knowledge, those are the only newspapers that are on Historic Pittsburgh. And you can access them through our website by just clicking on Squirrel Hill newspapers. And just one idea, there are some very interesting articles and some ads. I browse them sometimes just to get a sense of what was going on in different eras. Some things, there's nothing new under the sun. So we remember Squirrel Hill through photographs. So if you have any photographs that you think would be useful to us, I will scan them and give them back to you. We really don't have a place to store them. And they're dependent on the time, they're dependent on when we lived in a place, what we remember. You might not remember Rhoda's, you might think Kazansky's or Coriander, same building. Squirrel Hill Theater, when you see that picture, you don't just see that picture. If you went there, you think of the different things that you saw there, or just even going in, looking at, walking around on those ramps. Last. Does that look like anybody in this room? This is a picture of Tony's dad and grandfather. It's
Wow.
Shadyside. This is the Walnut Fruit Market. He had it on his, was it your dining room wall?
It's, yeah, we have a number of family copies of this one. I have the original.
But it is you gave us permission to put it on Historic. It does not have to be of Squirrel Hill in this case, This is Shady Side.
There is a Squirrel Hill connection with my dad and his produce route, and that's reflected in the article that I wrote for the newsletter a couple years ago.
So there you go.
Where
So
was that store?
This was Walnut Street. There were two
Walnut.
brothers. My grandfather and his brother had the monopoly on fruit markets in Shady Side.
So anyway, I think there is a resemblance. But anyway, again, look in your attics, check your old photo albums, look at the pictures on your wall, ask your relatives. If you find any pictures, again, I will just scan them and return them to you. So contact us at, there is our contact information, or just go to our website and contact us through the website. Okay, so that's the end of my presentation, and Todd is going to say a little bit about the Instagram account that most of us people of a certain age don't know anything about. So we're trying to get into the high-tech era. So while Todd's setting his up, oh, you also have to do that one. Okay. All right, so Todd, thank you. That's right, it does that.
Well, thank you for that great talk on all the history of Squirrel Hill and all the photos of Squirrel Hill. And to continue that, one of the great ways of sharing photos today is with Instagram. So how many of you are on Facebook? How many of you are on Instagram? So Instagram, for those of you who don't know, is part of Facebook. And if you have a Facebook account, all you have to do is download the Instagram app and click sign in with Facebook. And then you don't even need a new password. And then you can just click on, just create a name for yourself. And then you have access to this great photo sharing site. So in the pandemic, where I could no longer travel, having taken bridge photos my whole life, I thought, well, let me start sharing bridge photos on Instagram. Now there's over 10,000 people that follow that. But it was great to find other people taking photos, sharing Pittsburgh history, and I came across some various sites like Pittsburgh Then and Now, and Pittsburgh City Archives. So I messaged the person who was doing these accounts. Maybe he had posted a picture of a bridge. Maybe I'd comment or message him and say, oh, about this bridge. Well, it turns out that's Charles Suckup, so that's how I got to meet Charles Suckup. And what's just incredible is just how how you can meet people throughout the whole area. Charles and I were talking, and we thought this was a really great opportunity for the Squirrel Hill Historical Society to expand our reach. Helen just told us all of these incredible things that the society is doing with historic Pittsburgh. Well, how can we, show a global audience some of this information? So Charles created, and Charles couldn't be here tonight, but Charles just created the Squirrel Hill History Instagram. There's nothing on it right now, but the goal is to get it started. So we wanted to just kind of share why we're doing this and some of the exciting features that we'll have. And so here's a post that Charles did on his PGH Then and Now, all about the history of the Giant Eagle. Historical photographs, what used to be there, comparing the old map with the new map, even a discussion about the parking lot in the back. Again, I only was able to find these because I followed his Instagram. And another one that he did, Mom mentioned the Beacon Theater. Well, here's a whole, post he did on the Beacon Pharmacy as well as the theater across the street. And as you can see with these, that you have the opportunity to, see images. You can, scroll through up to 10 images. but then people are able to comment on them. You can see somebody wrote, love the history and great photos. Glad to see that there wasn't a dramatic change from then till now. Even on the Giant Eagle one, somebody wrote, when I was a student at Pitt in the late 90s, I found Fred Rogers at the Giant Eagle. And that's another great thing, is that just the ability for everybody to share and comment. There might be some people that have a lot of great Squirrel Hill photos, and they, for whatever reason, they don't know about us. Maybe that they live in another city now. But this is such a good, this site is such a good opportunity to connect with people and kind of expand the mission of our organization. So in short, Instagram is basically Facebook's Facebook app that is a photo sharing app. So all posts on Instagram must include a photo or video. Their captions should accompany the photo or video. Just think of it like the Squirrel Hill Arcadia book. Photo with captions. Up to 10 photos, and captions are limited at 2,200 characters. So you can write a lot, but you're not writing a book either. And there are a bunch of different ways to make your post, or that we can make our post, reach a national audience. One is that if you can click a hashtag, you can tag it to various things. So you could tag Pittsburgh history, you could tag Squirrel Hill, you could tag all kinds of different things, and people who are interested can follow that tag. For example, as a bridge photographer and researcher, I follow the hashtag truss bridges. So whenever somebody in the world posts something about a truss bridge, I get to see what they post. So, and even organizations might have their own hashtags. So I created a PGH Bridges hashtag. So if somebody wants to post that, then I get to see it. Or if somebody's following that hashtag, they'll see every single post that I do. So that's one way you can do it. Another way is most organizations have an account. Most people have an account. So you can specifically tag those accounts. So therefore, if you want, say, the Heinz History Center to see something, you tag it. Or maybe there's a post that the Squirrel Hill Historical Society does, you like it, so you can tag one of your friends. Or maybe somebody's looking at that, tags one of their friends, and they might tag somebody else. That's another direct way of spreading a post. You can tag it to location. So anything that we post, we can say, location Squirrel Hill. So if somebody can click follow a location, so they could follow any post that is tagged to Squirrel Hill. You can share features to other accounts. There's this message feature where you can contact the author, so people can contact us. It's a new way where somebody on Instagram can just click direct message, and they can send us photos, they can ask us questions. So it's a great engagement. And of course, you can like posts, and that also helps generate engagement as well. So when we'll post on Instagram, users can comment, they can tag others, we can share content from other accounts. Like for example, this picture on the left here, somebody was up at the top of the Cathedral of Learning with a selfie stick showing the view beyond the Cathedral of Learning. How many of you have ever seen what the top of the Cathedral of Learning looks like? So oh, that's incredible. So I immediately shared that in a 24-hour story so other people could see what was going on there. So if, say, another one of the historical societies posts something, we can comment on that. Or if we see somebody posting something about Squirrel Hill history, we can comment on that. So there are just so many different ways that we can connect with other organizations and broaden our reach. So what our goals are is to post once a week, and one of the posts would be to promote the next presentation coming up, or if there's an event that we're doing, we could post that. Another post would be to recap a past presentation. So we could show a picture of the presentation tonight and say, great job, Helen Wilson, look at these amazing photographs that you posted. And therefore, if somebody might have missed it, then now they'll want to go and watch the recording. Or if it was something where maybe you weren't interested in the speaker, well, so you didn't listen in. Well, maybe you click through the photos and like, actually, that sounded pretty good. I'm going to go to the site and watch the recording. So that's or you can show, hey, you missed this, and you send it to somebody else. It will help generate interest in our newsletter. So we can have posts about something about the newsletter, which would encourage people to sign up and become an actual member. We can provide various posts on just great historical content. And we can share captions from you, our members. So if it's one thing to write a newspaper article, but maybe you have a photo lying around. Maybe, as Helen mentioned about all the various, photos that you might have lying around, maybe you want to share something and write a caption. You don't have to go through the whole process of a newsletter article. You can just email us a photo with a caption, and we could share it. So this will really help, just engage everyone, and again, generate interest. I mean, we have the potential internationally to generate interest in Squirrel Hill and Squirrel Hill history. And it's also fun, too, because we have the opportunity to mark important dates. So if any of you knows, like, oh, well, my family's store opened on this date, or this was the day that this opened or closed, we have the opportunity to mark that. Like on the right here, this was a post that I did. Happy 70th birthday, Squirrel Hill Tunnel. You don't know, you don't even think it's Squirrel Hill Tunnel's birthday, but it's just nice to get a reminder or something like that. So the only requirements for posting, like I said, there has to be at least one image or video, but it can be up to 10. But you must either own the rights to the image or it must be in the public domain. So that is one thing important. If you want to share a photo with us, write a caption. We can look at it, or work with you on the caption. But there should be a caption accompanying the image, and it can be very short too. If there are any specific tags, you can suggest that. If not, Charles and I do this all the time. And to post, you just email us at our email address, sqhillhist@shsoc.org, which is on our website. But part of with Instagram is the direct message capability. So you can just click message and send us an image and a caption, and that's all that's needed. So, how to follow us. If you have Instagram, great. If not, in your app store, you just download Instagram. And again, if it's new, you click sign in with Facebook, and therefore it's a streamlined experience. In fact, if you post to Instagram, you can even share it with Facebook. So if you use it personally, you can have your same image in both places. So that makes it pretty easy. And then all you have to do is just click follow. So just type in Squirrel Hill, just start typing in Squirrel Hill, and you can see right there, Squirrel Hill History is one of the choices, as well as other great Squirrel Hill organizations. So you just type in Squirrel Hill, start typing in Squirrel Hill History, find us, Squirrel Hill History, and click follow. And just to note some of the other great accounts you can follow, like PGH Bridges is my personal account. Every day I post something about Pittsburgh bridges, even if it's related to something else, like this post of the Panther Hollow Bridge right there. That was during the Vintage Grand Prix. So I could post a picture of the bridge, note that the Vintage Grand Prix runs across the bridge, and then post pictures of the Vintage Grand Prix. So I'll tie everything to a bridge in the Pittsburgh area, and every single day. But it's a great opportunity to share information about Pittsburgh bridges. And Charles, he's really an overachiever, I think, as we all know. So he has some really great accounts like PGH Then and Now, Pittsburgh City Archives, and Pittsburgh History. So he does those three. And some other, and again, you could just, so many organizations have accounts. And that's another thing that, is important to us as well, is that if everyone else is doing it, we should be part of that conversation. So Doors Open Pittsburgh is on there. Odd Pittsburgh just has random Pittsburgh facts. Look, there's the old view of I love this image. It's an old view of Lamont when you had the Old Point Bridge and the Fort Pitt Bridge. But Uncover Squirrel Hill's on here, the Squirrel Hill Urban Coalition's on here, the JCC is on here. So now we'll be part of this too. So does anyone have any questions? So, we look forward to making our first post very soon. So, like I said, just search for Squirrel Hill history. And with that, thank you for all of these, coming tonight and all the wonderful ways we can share photos and share our history.
Thank you, Todd, and thank you, Helen, for some enlightening remarks on subjects near and dear to us. Looking ahead to next month, our speaker is Dr. Stacy Wentworth. She's coming up from Greensboro, North Carolina, to talk about the life and accomplishments of Dr. Bernard Fisher, who many of you are familiar with or may have known. He was a renowned breast cancer researcher at the University of Pittsburgh, a medical doctor who pioneered many surgical techniques and research, did groundbreaking research. And to make Dr. Wentworth feel at home, on Sunday night, October 8th, we're having a dinner for her here in this room. It'll be catered by Aladdin's Restaurant, and there's some registration forms on the back table, so pick one up on your way out, and I hope you can join us on Sunday the 8th of October, and then come back here on Tuesday the 10th to hear Dr. Wentworth speak. So, Jim, unless you have anything else, I think we're adjourned. Do you have anything that you want to
I
add?
would just mention the cost.
Yes, it's $20 for members, $25 a person for non-members to attend the dinner. And if you bring new people in and they become members in advance of the dinner, they get the member price. So again, thank you for being here tonight, and we'll look forward to seeing you next month.